to the Multicultural AFL Football Show. I am Vanessa Gatica. I'm originally from Mexico. With me to talk about all things AFL footy, I'm joined by my two co-panelists, who also come from diverse ethnic backgrounds. Javier Singh Khan of Punjabi heritage. Hello, Javier.
Hello, Vanessa. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And Gabriel D'Angelo, who is of Uruguayan background. Hello, Gabriel.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Gabriel, Javier and I will be bringing you the latest AFL news and results for the first week of finals. We will be highlighting the multicultural aspects of the AFL with interviews and our special game day box pop segment. And just to break it up, boys, this week we are off to the movies for some Aussie Rules comedy. Stay tuned for in the second half of our program. But first of all, last Thursday night, we saw the first game of the 2018 final series, where Richmond proved too good for Hawthorn at the MCG, 95-64. Back again at the G on Friday night, the elimination final between Melbourne and Geelong turned out to be a landslide which saw the Demons win in their first finals appearance in 12 years, 75-46. The other elimination final on Saturday evening was Sydney at the SCG against the GWS Giants. The young Giants ended Sydney's season with a comprehensive 79-30 victory, which in fact was the Swans' lowest score ever at the SCG. And in Perth, West Coast hosted Collingwood in the other qualifying final, where the Eagles came from behind in the last quarter to win in a very thrilling encounter, 86-70. Well, some disappointing matches and a close results. Guys, what was the match of the round?
For me, it was the match which was actually played for 4 quarters, which was Collingwood versus West Coast. It was special in a lot of ways because they kept the West Coast kept the stat of Jack Darling and the Josh Kennedy. Whenever they play, they win the match. So they kept that stat as well. So on the other hand, Collingwood they fought bravely until the third quarter. So I believe huge regards to them, huge regards to their strength, huge regards to their potential that they've shown this season, and no doubt they're in the top 4 this year. And huge mention to Travis Walker and the way he came up, the way he played, the way he tackled, and it will be a big tribute to his sister. So I believe this game had all the ingredients of the finals, and to me, other games like they were all decided before the third quarter or some of them. So I believe that was the pick of the round for me.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you, Abby. I thought that the West Coast Collingwood game was the best game of the round. It was tough, it was intense, it was close. It was everything that a finals match should be. And I have to give credit to Collingwood as well, because to go into to play against West Coast in Perth, it's not easy, especially when it's a final. So having the crowd as an extra man it's always nerve-wracking. So obviously it would have been played on their minds, but the way that Collingwood just came out all guns blazing, they weren't afraid, they played with a lot of courage. They did a very good job. So there is positives to come out of it, even though they lost. But I also want to share with you the same sentiments about Travis Varco. I thought that was amazing, that the fact that he not only played, he played really, really well. Just a few days ago, his sister died in very tragic circumstances. So that just proves the measure of the man. And I also think that GWS's performance against Sydney definitely merits a mention, because they were just amazing. The way they played against Sydney, they were clinical, they were just so sharp, and they surprised me in particular. They were just so good. I thought they were amazing. How they'll go against Collingwood, well, we don't know, but I'm sure we'll be discussing about that later.
Yeah, well, I believe that game has put Buddy Franklin in a bit of a spot, that if he gets a good defender on him, is he still that good or not? So it's a big question that has raised from the 2018 season, I believe.
That's interesting, because I think that the match between the Magpies and Eagles was a very exciting and a close game. It was my favorite game of the round as well. Okay, rapid fire Q&A segment, 6 questions, 6 quick answers. First one is for you, Javier. Tom Lynch made it clear last week that he's heading to Pound Road. Will his presence at Tigerland cause confusion and create bad blood between him and Jack Riewoldt? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting one, because we we can't really say at this stage, a reason being Jack Riewoldt, when I think he was put forward that question, he said that he's not after money. If bringing someone in can make the team better, he's fully up for it. So I hope he meant what he said. So if he meant what he said, so there shouldn't be any problem. Although there will be a bit of a headache for the midfielders who to pass the ball to, pretty much. But I'm pretty sure that Richmond would be happy to have that headache. So at the moment, I don't think there would be any bad blood. But further on, if something happens, yeah, I wouldn't be big surprised.
Gab, the drama involving Mitch McGovern's departure from the Crows continues, with question marks over his new destination and the reason for his split still regarding in Adelaide. Gabriel, where do you think he will be heading?
Well, apparently he's been linked to Carlton, of all places. He's apparently good friends with David Teague, who's one of the assistant coaches there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if a player like McGovern would want to go to a club like Carlton, with all due respect. They're in a major rebuild and they're not going to be playing finals anytime soon. So I don't know if that's going to actually happen. That's still up in the air. But the circumstances in his departure at Adelaide is just so bizarre. Apparently he's extremely upset with the medical treatment that he received before last year's grand final. He was supposed to play, but he missed out against Richmond in last year's grand final with the Crows. So he got really upset about that, and that was one of the main reasons why he wanted to leave, which just adds to the drama and the soap opera that is Adelaide's season this year.
Totally drama, definitely.
Yeah, telenovela.
Telenovela, yeah. Okay, Javier, your beloved Doggies will be missing Premiership player Luke Dalhouse, as he has requested a trade. Where will he be going, and are we seeing a team unfolding before our eyes?
Well, it's probably anybody's guess at the moment, but there is strong rumours and all the inclination towards him going to Geelong, because even Patrick Dangerfield has mentioned that he has spoken to Luke Dalhouse because of his friendship. So there's a big chance that he might move over there. But the way he is, the way he plays, with already a strong midfield, and I don't know where he would stay. With Tim Kelly rising to the occasion and other players coming up. But I believe he will be an asset to any team, I would say. But at the moment, I will think that he's going to go to Geelong. Mm. As far as Bulldogs are concerned, yes, they are in sort of rebuild as well, I would say, because the way the new players have come up, Lynch, Edwards, they've been fantastic, which is quite encouraging for Luke Beveridge and for Western Bulldogs. There is like a team sort of coming in shape. Especially we saw in the last matches, they were able to gel together. They knew their positions. They've got the good form in. So I believe they're heading towards the right way. So there is like a team forming a shape where everyone knows their roles. So yeah, it looks good for the future for the Doggies.
Gabriel, it seems that the drama around your favorite Saints never ends. There are reports Nick Riewoldt is coming back as board member, and rumors about unhappy players wanting to leave the club if Richardson stays. Gabriel, are the Saints in another crisis?
Well, the predicament that they're in, it's not productive and it's not healthy. I think that St Kilda, well, there's rumours going around that some players at St Kilda want to leave. That's just a rumour. There's also rumours that Gresham and Billings want to go to Essendon. More so Billings because he's got family connected to the coterie at Essendon. But again, that's just hearsay. There's also a lot of speculation about the future of Alan Richardson, and that possibly Blake Caracella, who is the Richmond assistant coach, he might come in and be the coach. But they're just waiting for Richmond's season to finish before they can make it official. And if Blake Caracella wants to coach St Kilda, that's another story. All these are rumours, but where there's smoke, there's fire. So, there's that as well. But Nick Riewoldt, he was in the press recently because he was extremely upset about allegations that he has an axe to grind against Alan Richardson, because apparently Nick Riewoldt and Lee Montagna were both retired early. Mm. They wanted to play on in 2018, but they were given their marching orders early, so he might still have a grudge against Alan Richardson. But all those elements together, plus this famous 5-year plan that St Kilda had in place, which has been an utter disaster. It just adds to all the turmoil. In fact, I've got here the St Kilda Football Club Strategic Framework 2014 to 2018 mission statement. So this is it here.
Oh, wow.
This is from the St Kilda Football Club. This was done years ago with their 5-year plan. I'll just read out a few of their points.
Of course. Go ahead.
St Kilda in 2018 will be a top 4 side, have more than 50,000 members in Australia, have 10,000 members in New Zealand. By 2020, St Kilda will win their second premiership. No way. The way that St Kilda are going at the moment, it's impossible. I mean, there's a better chance of Fabir winning Who Weekly's Sexiest Man Alive. There is just no way St Kilda are going to make it. Well, you know, if you have eye problems, sure. But yeah, St Kilda at the moment, they're just not going so well. And I do think it is a crisis, yeah.
Well, now heading up north, there is much talk about Stephen May leaving the Suns in the next few weeks, although he hasn't confirmed or denied it. Javier, do you see May playing in a Gold Coast jumper next year?
I think he will play for the Gold Coast at least for a year. We all know that they are in a bit of a turmoil at the moment, and I think management will be up to him as well to stay there, because even he said that he likes to be a captain, and his words were like, I really relish the pressure of being a captain and someone the boys look up to. So I believe he likes that role. However, when you say Dion Prestia or someone else like going to other club and then winning the premiership, that does sort of makes you think twice, like what decision is going to make. But at the moment, looks like it. The way Gold Coast Suns have put pressure on everyone that we've got that we're gonna do better next season. We've got some techniques in place whereby they can make a team, whereby they can make a good team. So I would say he will stay there for a year. But then again, if a big money comes up from a big club like Collingwood, who's been after him, so he might change his mind. But I would say at this stage, he's not going anywhere.
Interesting point. Thank you, Javier. And finally, Gabriel, after crashing out of the finals, is Geelong's premiership window closed with their current player list, or it is a little bit open for the Cats?
Well, Geelong didn't have the best of seasons by their own high standards. I mean, they just scraped into the finals and they went out against Melbourne, who were extremely inexperienced in terms of finals games. In fact, Melbourne had very few games in terms of experience, but one player, Jordan Lewis, had pretty much all of the experience on the Melbourne side, whereas Geelong, they've got plenty of premiership players. So there's really no excuse for them to falter on the first hurdle. But Geelong, they do have some very good players. They've got some quality players in their team. They've got Selwood, Ablett, Dangerfield. They've got Vanessa's husband, Tom Hawkins. They're fantastic players. And they've also got some good young players and some good mature age rookies coming in, like Radu Golea, Kolachasny, Kelly. There's some fantastic players at Geelong for the future. So I think that Geelong, they might trade a few players, like Menzel, he might be going to St Kilda. They might forcibly retire some players, maybe Harry Taylor. So they might do a little mini rebuild. In terms of the premiership window being shut, I think yes. But Geelong are such a good team that they'll pry it open very, very soon, maybe in a year or two, and they'll be back to their best.
We will return after the break with our special feature, The Merger, Review and Box Pop. You're watching the Multicultural Football Show, so stick around.
Our Vox Pop cameras went out this week and looked at the new Aussie film called The Merger. Directed by Mark Grentel, The Merger is set in the fictional tiny town of Podgy Creek, filmed in Wagga Wagga, focusing on the town's footy team, which is falling apart economically and socially, and where former AFL star Troy Carrington, played by Damien Callinan, lives on the fringe of the community, whose protest shenanigans accidentally led to the closure of the local timber mill. He is befriended by young Neil Rafferty Grayson, who's still struggling with the death of his father in a car accident, and the plot thickens when it transpires that Neil's widowed mum, Angie, played by Katie Mulvaney, runs the nearby refugee sports centre. Basically, it's an underdog movie where the oppressed and the dysfunctional face off against the bullies in the local footy grand final, inclusive of a really nasty coach. The scriptwriters transform the football club situation into a pseudo-ideological struggle. The compassionate lefties sport a team with refugees, and the other side, there are the deep-set right-wing xenophobes. With the Bodgy Creek Footy Club devastated by an asbestos outbreak in the club rooms and on the verge of being merged due to the lack of money, talent and clubhouse, Troy's plan involves recruiting the local refugee and migrant community to play footy. Apart from the raw recruits learning the game, he faces an even harder battle against the club's president, Bull Barlow, played by John Howard. As Bull tries hard to discourage the project even by illegal means. The merger is a fast-paced, enjoyable, outside-the-box type movie. It's hilarious without getting too over the top, with a socio-political message, very relevant in today's Australia, that sport crosses political and cultural platforms to form indelible bonds. It's a well-made, entertaining Australian film, and one especially for all Aussie Rules followers. 'Tis the season, watch the Fox Park.
So here with the merger with Justine and Nadia, how do you feel about this movie? That's a really funny movie.
I loved it. I thought it was good. It's a feel-good movie. I loved it. I cried. I laughed. I don't know.
Nadia?
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was really funny, and it really touched on a lot of, I suppose, interesting topics. And yeah, it was a good laugh, and yeah, it was a really feel-good movie.
I highly recommend it. Yeah, highly. Yeah,
Highly recommend it as well.
So we are in the finals. Which is your favorite team? I mean, who is going to win the final this year?
Oh, that's hard. I live with a Demons fan, but I feel like the Tigers. Richmond, is that Richmond?
Well, I mean, we listened to the song. I think it was the Tiger song.
Oh yeah, I'll go with the Tigers then.
And yourself?
I wouldn't have a clue, to be honest.
No idea?
No idea.
No idea?
I'll be watching, but I don't know.
We will watch, yeah.
Okay,
It
great.
sparked my interest, the movie, to watch I'll watch it.
Thank you very much. And from here for Channel 31, Vanessa Ketika and Máximo Pérez Torres.
That was very cultural to kick off the second half-hour show. The film sounds perfect for Down and Out Blues or St. Kilda Tragics. You're watching the Multicultural AFL Football Show, and we are now at the semi-final stage of the AFL Finals. Let's get straight into the games and our tips. First up on Friday at 7:50 Eastern Standard Time at the MCG, it is the first semi-final between Hawthorn and Melbourne. This will be a thrilling match as Melbourne seems to be on a streak after last week's performance. Who do you think will come out on top, Javier?
Well, I still want to go for Hawks. Although they disappointed me in the last match and the way they play against Richmond, they were very wasteful. Although there were like a couple of goals which sort of made the difference from Luke Bruce, especially the way. I mean, anyone would have kicked that. That's what it looked like, how the goals were. And if Luke Bruce is missing those goals, that's definitely not a good sign for Hawks at the moment. On the other hand, if we see Melbourne, they gelled together well, although they were very wasteful as well. So many behinds, and they easily could have scored way more goals. But it's a different game altogether with Hawks, because they're tackling pressure, and on their day they will just demolish the other team. We've seen that in the past. But at the moment, I believe the momentum is with Melbourne, and as my beloved co-host said last time, Cinderella story. I think they are on the Cinderella story, and that might be the factor they win again. But I would say it's going to be a close match again, and Melbourne have to fight hard, but they might come out on top for this one.
Yeah, this will be a very interesting game, because for me, Geelong were beatable, but Hawthorn are a very different level. They're a very different team. When they play finals, they go up a notch. And, like with the Western Bulldogs and with Richmond, it seems like Melbourne is now this year's fairy tale story, and a lot of people want that fairy tale to continue, and with good reason. But I have to say that a lot of the credit for Melbourne's turnaround has to go to both Simon Goodwin and especially Paul Roos, because they inherited, especially Paul Roos, he inherited an absolute basket case. Melbourne were just so bad for so long, and Paul Roos just put in a new system, new tactics, brought in some new players. He did a rebuild. He really fixed up the club to make them competitive again. And Simon Goodwin just elongated all the good work that Paul Roos has done. So I think that both of them really should be congratulated for Melbourne being in the finals now. And not just being in the finals, but playing some really good footy. They've got some good young players, Petrarca, Brayshaw, Oliver, Harms, Gawn, McDonald, Viney, the list goes on. They're very, very good players. And, Melbourne, I do believe that they've got a very good chance of beating Hawthorn. They have to be very, very sharp, because the many misses they had against Geelong, Hawthorn would punish. So they have to be very careful. And as a St Kilda supporter, I'm a little bit jealous about Melbourne, because St Kilda and Melbourne, we were sort of parallel in terms of our rebuilds and our development. And St Kilda went one way and Melbourne went the other. But I hope Melbourne can do this. I hope they can win.
Using the Hawks-Demons game, what do you guys think about Melbourne's chances of progressing further in September? If they beat Hawthorn this week, they would face the Eagles in Perth for the prelim. Will it be too much for the young Demons, or do they have the heart to keep going?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they have a shot. I mean, every team in the finals has a shot. Everybody starts at zero and anyone can win. I think that Melbourne, their focus obviously is going to be on Hawthorn this week, and it has to be, because if they win, there could be all sorts of mitigating circumstances coming up to the next game. There could be injuries, there could be suspensions, there could be all sorts of things, and it could go either in favour or against them. But I think a little bit too early to tell, because when they go into a preliminary final stage, it's a different level altogether. The footy is much more intense, it's much more tight, and every little mistake gets magnified. So I think it's a little bit too early to tell about how Melbourne will go, but we'll wait and see.
Well, I would say if they had to face West Coast Eagles in Perth and in the finals, I know that they've beaten them before, but it will be a whole different game altogether, with Jack Darling and Josh Kennedy at the front, as we saw in the last game as well. Although they were kept quiet for the first first half or so, there was like no goals from them, but still the others sort of popped up as well. Elliot Year, he came up with about 36 disposals to give that supply to the forwards at that point. So there was a lot of positives in that game as far as West Coast is concerned. And then West Coast with Josh Kennedy and Jack Darling, you can't keep them quiet, which we saw that in the second half, that they pounced on. It wasn't like Buddy Franklin, who was kept quiet for the whole game. So they've got everything what it takes to beat any team on the day, and I think that will make a bit harder for Melbourne to win over there. So young Demons, if they go there, I think it's going to be very hard for them to pass that stage.
Interesting points, guys. My pick is Melbourne as well. They have a great momentum and a quick ball movement, so that will be too good for the Hawks, I think. Moving along to Saturday, 7:25 Eastern Standard Time at the MCG, it is the second semi-final between Collingwood and GWS. The Giants haven't had much of a happy history at the MCG, but will they finally have a season to smile on Saturday night, Gabriel?
I don't think so. GWS, they seem to not like playing at the MCG. They don't have any problems playing anywhere else, but at the MCG they seem to appear to be lost. It's like it's a different side altogether. And they're going to be playing against Collingwood in finals footy at the MCG. That's a very, very daunting task, and they're going to have so many black and white supporters. It's going to be a Collingwood cauldron. A lot of Collingwood supporters, a lot of mad Collingwood supporters are going to go to the MCG. They're going to be out on parole, out on bail. They're going to be there. They're going to make sure that they're going to watch and see that their Magpies destroy GWS, and I think they can. I think that Collingwood, they've got some fantastic players like Steele Sidebottom. I think he's an extremely underrated player. I think he's just magnificent. The way he goes about his footy, he's brilliant. And they've got Myercheck and Grundy. There's some really good talent in the side. I think that Mason Cox, he really needs to have a good game because last week he was a little bit missing in action. They really needed his presence against West Coast and he didn't really do much. So he needs to sort of get back to his best form at the right time. And of course, Travis Varco, what we said about him earlier. I mean, the fact that he played soon after his sister had that extremely tragic accident that caused her death, I thought that was just amazing and a real measure of the man. GWS, of course, they're a fantastic team. Of course, they're very good, but beating Sydney in Sydney is going to be very different to playing Collingwood at the MCG with so many Collingwood supporters. GWS can bring their entire fan base, all 9 of them, to the MCG, but it's not going to make a difference. I think Collingwood are going to smash GWS.
Yeah, well, I believe it's going to be Collingwood for me as well. But I would like to say, and I would like to add to it, I think GWS is sort of getting used to with that kind of atmosphere as well. They've done that in the finals before. They had to come and face teams where all the MCG is packed with the other team supporters and they only have 9 of them. But I would still say that Collingwood will win because they've got so many heroes at the moment. Although I don't really see Mason Cox having much of an impact with Phil if Phil Davis plays on him, because if he can stop Buddy Franklin, I believe it's going to be a lot easier for him. Although the biggest factor is Brodie Grundy as well. He's been fantastic. He's going to be a difference between that team and this team. I believe if Collingwood wins, it's going to be because of the players like Sidebottom, DeGoey, Adam Trillo, Taylor Adams. Like they're all gonna gel together, and they just want to take this opportunity at the moment. They went very close to West Coast, and the way they performed, especially after losing the first quarter, and the way they performed. Even Brodie Grundy was a bit low in the first quarter, but eventually he won the hitouts by a big margin at the end. So they've got that capacity to bounce back as well. On the other hand, GWS, like they sort of go, and they sometimes perform, sometimes they don't. But I think this time they might not be able to perform that well. So Collingwood's gonna come out top in this one.
Interesting point made, guys. Just a reminder that the winner of Hawthorn against Melbourne plays West Coast in Perth, and the winner of Collingwood against GWS plays against Richmond at the MCG. So before we go, which team looks like going all the way to the grand final?
Well, to me, it's Richmond and West Coast. That's the way I see it at the moment, because MCG, Richmond, I don't think anyone can beat them. And on the other hand, we all know Perth. It's like a fortress for West Coast. I don't think they're going to let this one go. So I can say Richmond and West Coast final at this stage.
Yeah, Richmond definitely. I mean, really, like Richmond, they're just, you might as well just pencil them in. But if Hawthorn beat Melbourne and then they have to play West Coast, I actually think Hawthorn might upset West Coast, because they do really well on the road to Hawthorn and they're not scared of anyone. So it wouldn't surprise me if Hawthorn make it to the grand final as well. But
really?
Time will tell.
Okay. Well, that is all for this week's edition of the Multicultural Football Show. Don't forget to listen to us on 377 FM and online at the NEMBC's AFL Footy website. Stay tuned next week as we will have lots more AFL action and news about all things multicultural footy. I am Vanessa Gatica. Thank you for watching. I hope your team wins. Bye for now.
Let me hear you sing.